Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're doing good. I'm doing great as always. So Nikon has just announced a new lens for the Z series for the new 70 to 180 millimeter f2.8 lens. And it's kind of a unique lens, and it's quite interesting in this way it is between the 70 and the 180. And I just thought I'd give my quick impressions of using this lens for I was very lucky in that I was able to participate in creating some of the sample images in that for the launch of this lens actually. So if you look at Nikon USA on their website and Nikon Japan on their Instagram, and again on Nikon USA's Instagram as well, you can see some of the images of the BMX and 3-on-3 basketball that I created for this campaign using this 70 to 180 millimeter f2.8 lens. Thanks a lot, Nikon, obviously, for letting me be part of such a cool thing here and helping create these images that'll be forever associated with this lens. So thank you very much. So first, yes, I am a professional photographer. So the images I shot for Nikon for this campaign were obviously part of my professional work. So I was paid obviously for these images, but this video in particular on my own personal YouTube here is not being paid for at all by Nikon. It's just my own thoughts and feelings of using the lens during this project. So yeah, let's check it out. Okay, so first to note about this lens is the 70 to 180 millimeter 2.8 lens. The size here, the focal length, is quite unique. Usually, as a professional photographer, I would be using a lens that would be, say, a 70 to 200 2.8. That's kind of the traditional focal length that you'll find with many makers out there. That'll be what they have. But Nikon's gone ahead and done a 70 to 180 millimeter. So you're losing 20 millimeters on the far end, the zoomed in end of the lens. What does this mean, really? Well, it means you miss a tiny bit of zoom at the very end. And because of that, Nikon has gone and priced this lens very competitively at $1,200 compared to the 70 to 200 Z series lens, which is $2,300 or so online in American USD. So this is pretty crazy. It's actually more than $1,000 less than your traditional 70 to 200 2.8. But the thing is, with the 70 to 100, it's still 2.8. And I should mention, it's 2.8 from front to back. It's 2.8 from the 70 millimeter to the 180 millimeter. That f-stop does not change as you zoom. It doesn't change at all while you're shooting like that. So it's really good for when you want to be shooting consistently on the field as a professional. I don't want my aperture changing just because I'm zooming in that. I stay away from lenses that do that. I never use them. I only used them when I was very first starting out because that was the only option really for me at the time, price-wise and that. For people who can get in on this price range at $1,200 or so at a 70 to 180, and it's still put 2.8 all the way through, is really impressive. And it's really nice to see what Nikon is doing to help bring in new users maybe to the Nikon Z series of cameras and lenses. I think it's a great starting point, this lens. I think it's great for anything from sports to portraiture. Sorry, I speak too much Japanese these days. Headoshoto. So anything from kaoshashin, portraits, to action, to maybe nature and landscapes and things like that. This is a great all-around lens for anything like that. Now, if you're worried about this 20 millimeters that you're losing out and you want to spend the extra $1,000 on it, fine, go ahead, that's awesome. A lot of people will be doing that still professional wise because you need that extra little bit of zoom maybe. But I did a little test shooting in my living room with my good old friend Trunks here. And the first image that you see here is at 180 millimeters. So this will be the max zoom in of the new lens. And now this is a shot taken at 200 millimeters. These, I should mention, were shot with my f-mount 70 to 200 because I don't have a Z-mount lens and I don't have the actual lens with me right now. I only got to use it for the project that we did. But really, looking at this, 180, 200. Now, you know what I can do very easily to make this 180 look like the 200? I can crop just ever so slightly. I can crop it in and it looks the same basically. Now looking at the background, there's a little bit of difference in focal length. This 20 millimeters, it doesn't really seem to change a whole lot. It might change if you're like a pixel peeper and that. It probably does change a little bit, but in the end, I don't think it'll be the biggest issue that you have when out shooting is this extra little 20 millimeters that you miss. If you do actually want to zoom in more from the 180 millimeters to 200, well, what you can do, you can take a big step forward and just move your body, and that'll basically bring down the difference in the 20 millimeters that you get with this lens. Modern day cameras, my Z9, the Z8 that was recently released as well, other cameras, they have really large sensors, so any kind of little bit of cropping that you're doing, not going to be a problem at all, really, I don't think. If you're shooting for social media, basically, it's not an issue at all, zero problems with this missing out of 20 millimeters at the end. Now for this campaign, like I said, I shot BMX, indoor BMX, and indoor 3-on-3 basketball. So both of these venues were quite dark. They were quite challenging as far as settings and things like that. But the nice thing about this lens, it is an f2.8 lens. So that's really quite bright actually in these situations. And we were able to get a lot of fast moving action, bang on, in focus, and nicely exposed using the 2.8 without having to crank up the ISO all that much. So having 2.8 in your zoom lens is really, really nice and helpful. It helps you shoot action in a little bit darker situations. And I should also mention, this lens seemed to keep up with the action quite well as far as the autofocus. So I was actually shooting these images with the Z8 before it was announced, so it was a lot of fun to do that. And all the action that we did, basically, the Z8 and this 70 to 180 millimeter f2.8 lens stayed on the action at all times, no matter if they were going across, coming towards me, doing a trick on the BMX or anything like that. Everything was great and it turned out nice. The focus was good. And looking at the images, I think the image quality of the lens is very nice. They seem to be sharp and they seem to be high quality images. I'm quite happy with how they turned out. And I think Nikon in general we're quite happy with our images as well. So it was a great day, great couple days of shooting actually, and everything worked out really well in the end. Yeah, so I don't want to go on too much about the lens right now. I just want to talk about my initial thoughts about this particular unique, 70 to 180 is kind of a unique way of doing it, but I think Nikon's done a really, really good job here of keeping their price point low at $1,200. Still, $1,200 is not low for anything if you're buying a lens. It's still quite a lot of money, but what you're getting for it is really, really good compared to what you would have to spend to add a little, 20 millimeters on it. I want to replace my f-mount lens, my 70 to 200 that I use with my Z9 right now. So this is actually a pretty intriguing option for me. I might have to borrow the lens or rent it, really test it out and see if the sharpness and the quality of the lens is up to par of the 70 to 200, which I hope it would be. I think it is. Nikon makes great equipment and all that kind of stuff. And so, in the end, I think this lens is going to be there's going to be pros like myself out there that are intrigued in it, but there's going to be a lot of beginners who are just getting into the system, into the Z system, that are really going to be looking to pick up this lens. And I think it'll be a very popular lens. For the price point, it's amazing what you get, like I said a couple times already. And it's just really cool. I think it's like the Nikon's bringing this stuff out to really bring in people, open up photography a bit more in that aspect, and just allowing, not really compromising on the f-stop, which would have killed this lens. I think there's too many lenses out there like that. And I had a really good time using this lens. And like I said, I probably will think about picking it up to replace my f-mount lens that I've been using for the last 10-15 years or something like that. Big huge thanks to Nikon for having the confidence in me to get these images for them. We worked really hard during our 2 days of shooting, but it was tons of fun. Great way to do this, and I love seeing my images up on Nikon USA and all that kind of stuff. This is my first time working with Nikon since I shot the cover for the D7500, I think it was. So it was great working with one of the companies that I've been a user of for over 20 years now. So thanks again, and yeah, I hope this little video is helpful. If I can do a more hands-on, full-length review, I will try to do that in the coming weeks. So cheers, thanks a lot. Any comments, questions you have is great, and please subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.